Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn webinar on the 6 critical asset inventory challenges school districts are facing today, presented by Hayes Software Systems. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Anna Maxton. She's a certified IT asset manager and the director of product management at Hayes Software. She comes to us with a lot of experience working with K-12 schools and has some very valuable and current information for us today. Anna?
Thanks, Megan, and thank you all for your time today. I've been fortunate to work with K-12 school districts for 11 years with Hayes Software Systems. For 24 years, Hayes has specialized in offering consulting services and technology solutions for inventory management. We focused on the particular needs of school administrators to effectively track operational and instructional assets. So today we will discuss what the asset landscape looks like in today's school district. We'll review 6 asset management challenges facing districts of all sizes, and we'll also look at some actionable steps that will ensure lasting change for your district as you overcome your own asset management challenges. As we get started today, let's define the range of asset types our discussion focuses on. The root cause for all of the challenges we cover today exists because the landscape of resources critical to a school and district have expanded at a faster pace than most districts have been able to create or adjust their existing policy and procedure for. So let's answer the question of what is an asset. Asset definitions can be confusing because of overlapping terminology. So let's break it down to cover property inventory requirements and capitalization thresholds. First, an inventory is an itemized list for tracking and controlling property. Now, capitalization is best defined as an accounting treatment, whereby an item is recorded as an asset on the balance sheet rather than as an expense of the current period. Clearly, capitalization is a very financial process. Ultimately, all items owned by the district can rightfully be considered assets. But as a practical matter, organizations do not capitalize all of them. So while all capitalized items should be inventoried, not all inventoried items should necessarily be capitalized. For accountability and internal control purposes, districts normally maintain inventories of many items of property they do not capitalize on their financial statements. For example, districts will inventory computers, classroom equipment, mobile devices, and learning tools for internal control purposes, but not capitalize them due to their low cost. For the purpose of our presentation today, the challenges districts are facing relate directly to the broader category of inventory, as these new items and asset types aren't as easy to track and control as traditional capitalized assets. We've already described the goals of capitalized assets, and they are typically defined as items with a purchase value of greater than $500, $1,000, or even $5,000, depending on your district board policy. Traditionally, a district's finance department manages a physical inventory audit of assets it considers depreciable and controllable. Finance is focused on a yearly physical audit of these assets to account for the building location and status of each asset. The loss rate of these particular types of assets are low, so the purpose of tracking them is less about accountability and more about accounting procedures. For districts with low dollar value thresholds, there's a trend of this policy adjusting to the higher threshold of $1,000 or $5,000 as the pressure of tracking the quantity of lower value assets becomes more overwhelming. And here are some of the items that are more overwhelming. So the first one is infrastructure equipment, like routers, servers, switches. All of these things are often purchased with capital outlay monies and E-rate funding, which often qualify them to be tracked as a fixed asset. The technology department is focused on accounting for the location and age of infrastructure assets, like these pictured here, and will often be the custodian of these assets located across school buildings. As you can imagine, auditing these assets is a challenge, not only for the technology staff available to perform the inventory audit, but also for the physical location of these assets. Some infrastructure items are located in ceiling tiles mounted to the ceiling and can be difficult to properly identify. if your servers, for example, are stored in compact racks. Now, devices like these are common in classroom instruction. Classroom media centers with projectors, document cameras, interactive whiteboards are increasingly integrated into delivering curriculum at all grade levels. Both district technology staff and supporting campus staff are focused on making sure teachers have functioning devices in their classrooms, they know how to properly use them, and keep them in working order. Planning for the refresh of these devices is challenging, and districts can save the cost of replacing devices that are newly purchased if they are tracking, and recording purchasing information on each asset. Inventory items like these mobile devices are another asset that are greatly challenging the policy and procedures of traditional asset management. There's a lot of talk about these devices and properly managing logistics, security, and content access. If your students are being assigned a personal device, you'll also want to consider how to track a student's history of devices, damages, payments, and forms. Those same factors are just as critical for teachers and administrative staff who are assigned these devices by the district. Learning tools like these might include special education assistive devices for a student's IEP, or STEM-funded science and math equipment like microscopes and calculators. Career and technology education will also have lower dollar value assets that are critical to instruction and not consistently considered traditional assets. Inventory like these are often managed informally by school staff, if at all, which complicates the reporting needs of district categorical program coordinators, and in many cases also proves to be a source of loss. Our partnership with districts across the country has led us to identify the trends presented here on this slide. School districts of all sizes are faced with new internal and external pressures which challenge their ability to do business as usual. Managing all these new types of assets for inventory can't be done the way capitalized assets are inventory. Access to information is different, and the resources required to scale for the volume of assets is unmanageable. We'll spend a few minutes discussing each of these challenges next, but I'm interested to know from you guys on this webcast if any of these stand out as challenges you and your district are facing. Please use your chat window and let me know your top 3. I'll wait a few minutes while you type your response. Thanks, Christy, for your feedback. And we'll start with that physical inventory audit first because it's by far a really challenging thing that people are dealing with. Oh, and we've got multiple. Frank, you bring up an interesting idea. I might stay away from the word inadequate as much as because of the role and its change, a lot of staff aren't necessarily equipped to handle the change. And we'll actually give you some tips later in the webcast that you might be able to use to kind of reevaluate what roles are required and what tasks a person would need to have in order to do some of this job moving forward. Awesome. Well, I think we'll go ahead and move on to asset challenge number 1. So number 1 is focused on verifying what assets the district has across its buildings. So many districts are faced with a very manual process of reconciling their asset records, and because of that, it only happens once a year. Only a very small percentage of fixed asset systems provide functionality to support the district in performing a physical inventory audit of all their property that needs to be tracked. Often paper and spreadsheets are employed. Hours upon hours of staff time across school buildings and departments are used, and the frustration level of the process can lead to inaccurate data. Improving this process means taking advantage of opportunities to quickly gather the correct data and change the perception of inventory records. By perception, I'm specifically talking about schools and departments who are repeatedly faced with inventory that doesn't get updated throughout the school year or from the last inventory audit. District staff responsible for trying to keep up with the constant flow of asset transfers, surplus forms, and audit adjustments could completely change their daily priorities if the inventory changes I just described were automated and electronic, updating on a real-time basis. Lower purchase value assets become more overwhelming as computing devices become less expensive and instruction focuses on more engaging tactics. Finance departments don't have the staff or system resources to scale to meet these demands. They also are not the end user of records they're collecting. A challenge, and this is actually a really great challenge. An example is the capability to see an inventory list of all Apple iPads in the district. Seems like a basic request, but if the people who create asset records aren't the people who actually use the records, there will always be gaps in effectiveness. They won't know that what you actually need to see are detailed model numbers, funding source information, purchase dates, and assigned location, whether that's a building room or individual in the school district. So connecting your information consumers and your data entry staff together will actually eliminate unnecessary work and focus the right effort on the highest priorities. So let's take a look at what inventory looks like in one school district. I have an example here of a school district with 85,000 students, 128 school buildings. This district's fixed asset system data gives us a look into the inventory that has made its way into that system. Of the 162,000 assets in the fixed asset system, only 3% of inventory is greater than $5,000, which is now the district's newly adopted capital asset threshold. That leaves 97% of inventory that is critical to instruction and administrative operations accounted for in a fixed asset system that doesn't have controlled access for staff who truly manage that inventory on a daily basis and need reporting from that data. Now, let's also keep in mind that this does not include low dollar value assets like tablets, e-readers, iPads, that schools and departments are expected to track on their own unless they're purchased with federal funds. This district recognized that oversight, and in response to this challenge, made a policy change that offers processes to better suit these low dollar value assets. They removed them from their fixed asset system and added them to a more flexible inventory repository system intended to be accessed by anyone with the authority to move, dispose, assign, or purchase inventory. It's actually a great segue into the next challenge. As a result of limited user access and software functionality in the district's fixed asset system, there's an overwhelming amount of disparate data manually tracked at multiple department and staff levels. Anyone managing these siloed inventory repositories is faced with process inefficiencies and data inconsistencies. Accounting for these assets on a daily basis is critical to end users of inventory, but it takes communication and create a documented, teachable, measurable, consistent inventory program across your district. Now, challenge number 4 affects both the district and school administrator responsible for evaluating needs and creating a budget. Without a formal process for communicating purchases and asset movement, decision makers can be in the dark trying to plan for the future. It's also possible that equity may be an issue in your district, and without access to identify not only the type and age of assets across your school buildings, but also the funding source of these assets. As an example, Title I qualified schools have to be treated uniquely Inventory can only be relocated to another Title I school. And if the school's status were to be removed, any inventory funded by Title I would need to be identified and removed for compliance. Solving this challenge also includes creating a vision and an in-depth understanding of the inventory program purpose, which will ultimately maximize what has been spent for assets and minimize losses and unnecessary spending. Implementing new learning initiatives and assessment requirements are causing districts to evaluate what processes aren't going to be efficient, accurate, or scalable for these types of assets. All too often, a district will decide to invest funds in the purchase of assets without a plan for how to deploy them, recoup them, and identify them in the future. Many schools are left on their own with little district oversight and support to manage the logistics required to assign assets to students and staff. Unlike other automated tool options, a specialized inventory repository built with capabilities for personal assignment will include an integration with your student management system. So new students are added and transferred to schools nightly. It also includes an integration option for your HR system to populate teachers, support staff, and administrators who are also receive costly inventory. The last challenge we'll mention today focuses on the day-to-day oversight of assets. Lots of different staff have their hands on inventory. Without giving a principal or department head real-time access to assets under their responsibility, little can be done to ensure equity between teachers and schools. Coupled with the other challenges we've mentioned, not effectively capturing inventory data can mean schools receive requests from multiple areas of the district to gather data at a moment's notice. Like, how many computers have Windows 7? Or does your school have any extra document cameras and storage that we could use? Purchases make these unnecessary. Staff is unaware of assets being purchased by others in the district. Warranties go unused. True needs go unrecognized, and students miss out on equitable opportunities to access. Centralizing inventory records offers the ability to improve capability, capacity, consistency, and quality. Let's quickly look at some of the root causes driving these challenges. Listed here are factors contributing to districts reevaluating their existing procedures. The first is meeting the new demands of federally funded asset purchases, which includes documentation from purchase to disposal and physical audit records. Next is the transition to online student assessments for state standards or to meet the goals of the Common Core. These are spurring the purchase of one-to-one, one-to-need, and shared device purchases. Capital outlay budgets are competitively prioritized between the needs for renovations and maintenance, site improvements, and equipment and furniture. Many districts are also challenging their board policy by increasing asset capitalization thresholds for GASB reporting purposes, which properly accounts for both the financial and economic resources of the district. These districts are now looking for a way to record and maintain these non-asset inventories in subsidiary ledgers. The last and highly critical area is human resource alignment. Already overburdened staff and those that struggle to adapt to their changing environment have a major impact on program success. For those of you already wondering how to get from where you are now to where you want to be, we've created a chart to help you identify some high-level steps for true inventory program optimization. Step one of the staff evaluation is self-evaluation is chaos, where schools are buying anything they want without the technology department or property management knowing. This makes recording or tracking assets incredibly difficult and unreliable. Roles and responsibilities are also undefined and inconsistent. Stage two involves implementing an asset repository and discovery tools, as well as centralizing asset approval to the purchasing process. Stage three, asset programs, will enable the district to integrate systems to minimize data entry. The physical audit process is also streamlined to enable stakeholders to electronically identify assets and reconcile discrepancies. The most mature asset programs are what we call Stage 4. This is where the inventory data consumers, like department heads and assistant superintendents, can utilize asset data in decision-making with a high level of trust. Assets also have a visible life cycle history, enabling auditors or anyone in the district to have the ability to view where an asset has been, its status, and damages over its history of use in the district. Stage 4 is the ultimate goal for districts who implement asset management controls to overcome their challenges. They will see gains in maximizing the existing resources the district already owns, whether they're actively used or stored away, minimizing the cost of replacing lost assets to see an increase in the transparency of asset data to any asset stakeholder, improve accountability. You'll also accurately forecast for future purposes by analyzing reliable asset data. You'll be able to respond to internal, state, and federal audits with reliable information with less reactive staff effort. And last, be able to truly ensure students have access to the materials they need to succeed in the classroom, which is aligned strategically to your district's mission. Before we finish up this afternoon's discussion, let's cover a few tactics you can use to improve processes and create efficiencies in your district. The first recognizes that many people play a role in the end-to-end management of assets in your district. In order to be open, responsive, and accountable, management committees need to effectively engage with your district stakeholders. Enter into a dialogue with stakeholders can bring a number of benefits to the management committee and the organization. It ensures the district continues to meet their needs and addresses any concerns. It keeps program managers in touch with changing environments and requirements, and it increases their engagement with and support for the district's goals. It's therefore worthwhile reviewing who are the stakeholders in your district and how you engage with them. The stakeholders you include will vary according to the nature of the initiative, but the following groups should be considered. You'll see this list includes everyone who touches an inventoried asset, from its purchase to disposal, including staff at the district level, school resources, and your clients, students, parents, and employees. It's never too soon to formulate the what's in it for me question, as you'll quickly be required to articulate why the change is necessary and what the value is at a variety of levels. This is a core concept to move change forward within your district. While certain personnel may have a clear picture of why something needs to change, persons in different departments, campuses, and at varying levels within your district have different pains and a different view on what is most beneficial for them in their role. You'll want to look at each segment of the organization and understand their pains and drivers to craft targeted communication tactics for each group. To ensure relevance and recognition, you'll want to create a communication plan. I've included a sample of questions on this slide to get you started. You'll also want to define how this change is intended to affect the organization. Financially, such as a reduction in losses or improved budget planning. Maybe it's in response to legal or compliance requirements such as mandates, new regulations, or proactively addressing gaps. Do you expect operation improvements such as capacity, capability, consistency, and quality? Public relations is also a result of change. Will the district look better in the eyes of the superintendent, school board members, the community, or stand out as a leader to other school districts across the country? Now that you've got that great communication plan down, it's time to think about how you will evaluate progress to reaching your goals. You'll want to create a set of metrics which will serve as strategic performance indicators designed to assist the district in monitoring and managing the execution of your new processes. These performance indicators will be measures that may address loss ratios, buying habits, storage or active ratios, or inventory and audit procedures. Lastly, take it upon yourself to change old policies and behaviors. We are creatures of habit. We like repeatable processes. We don't want to have to think about what to do all the time. Your asset inventory practices are not immune to these realities of human nature. Dig in and ask every 3-year-old child's favorite question, why? I guarantee you will be surprised at how often the answer to the question of why do we do a process this way is contributing to the challenges facing your district. Often the source of policy, whether written or unwritten, is long forgotten. Schedule time at least twice a year to evaluate your current climate. Discuss your initiatives, challenges, and resources. The SKS, which stands for Stop, Keep Doing, and Start. This is a process where it's formal name for a short set of questions that you can use when evaluating your current asset management processes. The questions are simple. What should we keep doing? What should we, start with the wrong one. What should we stop doing? What should we keep doing? And what should we start doing? Phil Daniels, a psychology professor at Brigham Young University, is credited with devising the process. It's effective for several reasons. First, it's reassuring. The questions push others to think of specific things that are going well as encouraging them to say what could be done better. The process is action-focused. The comments made give you a practical insight into the impact of staff behavior on others and explains precisely what can be done to improve. Finally, the questions are quick. In many cases, they'll allow people to give good quality feedback in just a few minutes. That concludes my presentation today. I thank you all so much for your time, and I hope I was able to provide some new tactics and strategies that you can use, as well as make you feel like you are not in this alone. There are districts across the country that are facing these challenges. Our contact information is listed on the screen here if you'd like additional information about Hayes Software Systems and how we can help you overcome asset challenges, as well as our website where you can perform research on your own with case studies, blog posts, and press releases.